and he's also friends with the sheriff, who unfortunately is no longer with us, George Costanza. Well, we'll start with that because I know you wanted to talk about George, so you have some words.
Yeah, I was going to tell some kind of amusing stories about him, because I was the one who, of our whole group that made Night of the Living Dead, I was the one who knew him the longest, and we met when we were in our early 20s, and he was only a few years older than me, and quite a zany character. A whole lot of people didn't like him very much, but I always befriended the people with the odd personalities, odd and zany personalities. That's what I like. So I befriended him when a lot of people didn't want to have anything to do with him. Because for one thing, he could be very gruff, and he was a barroom brawler. and so, before I get into that, thank you all for helping to support Monster Bash, one of the best shows around, and thanks to Ron and Ursula and everybody else that's connected with it. And thanks for having me here year after year. I enjoy it. The conventions are a lot of fun and a good way to make connections and help further your career if you have those aspirations. So anyway, I was into boxing when I was probably from about 4th grade on, and then I had a friend of mine, Ray Duquesne, and George Costanza. When they were in their 20s, they had one of the most famous bar fights ever in the mill town where I grew up, which was, I had my first fist fight when I was 5 years old. You grew up fighting in that town. So, but to build up to that, Ray and I built a boxing ring by stealing bull ropes and digging post holes and making our own ring, and then we would, if we wanted to kick somebody's ass, we'd goad them into getting into the ring with us. And that's what we did. So Ray later almost turned pro heavyweight, and he was a big barroom brawler, and he and George Costanza got into this famous fight at the VFW in Clareton, Pennsylvania, our hometown. And that bar used to have a huge picture window. And one day, Ray went in with his wife to get a 6-pack, and George Costanza said, "Get the hell out of my way." And they started slinging fists, and it turned into something that should have been in a Western movie. And they crashed through the picture window. They crashed back through the picture window. They broke almost every bottle of whiskey in the place. And they both got thrown out, of course, arrested and everything else. And now that VFW is still there, but it has a window about this size. So anyway, George and I used to go to jazz concerts. Both of us were into jazz. He was really into jazz to the point where he hated any other kind of music, and he'd actually punch people out if he was trying to listen to some jazz thing, and somebody wanted to talk to him. He would do crazy things like that. So one day we went to a jazz festival at Penn State University, and I had some friends there, Bob and Jane Barrett, who were some of the original investors in Night of the Living Dead, and they were both zombies in the movie. But that was later. This is their college students, and I was teaching school, and George was working in the mill, and we go to this jazz festival, and then we start smoking dope and drinking. Well, the thing is, I said, well, college students never have any money, so we loaded the car up with whiskey and beer, and we brought that, and then about 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody said, let's go for a bike ride. Well, we didn't have any bikes. So we went out. Of course, there's a lot of bikes at Penn State, so we just went out and we stole a couple of bikes. We didn't intend to keep them. We were going to bring them back, but for the time being, we stole a couple of bikes. And George couldn't get a bike because the last bike that was there on the rack had a lock on it. So he said, well, I can pick this lock. So meantime, Bob and I are riding all over the campus. We even carried the bikes up the steps in the dorm, and we'd ride down one hall, carry the bike up to the next step and ride down the other hall, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Next thing you know, he picks the lock, and I see this, he looked like Humphrey Pennyworth with that big belly of his. He had picked the lock, and he's riding the bike down the street. So, but one of the best things he ever did, one of the funniest things, is we used to live in this place called the Clareton Grill, and in those days, in our early 20s, when we went out, everybody wore suits and ties. You know, you got all slicked up, and everybody tried to be cool too. I mean, you had to be very dapper and you had to be very cool. So we're in the bar, guys and girls, and you know, smoking cigarettes, drinking our cocktails, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 smash, 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 the door caves in out in the dining room area, and about 6 cops come running down the side of the bar, all the way down the end of the bar, up the stairs, and up down the hallway, and bang, bang, bang. Nobody missed a beat. We were so cool. You know, we just sipped our drinks and smoked our cigarettes, and nobody even blinked. Next thing you know, the cops all come downstairs, and they talk to the owner, and here's what happened. Cuss, we call him Cuss, George Costanza. He was on his way to the gambling joint down in the alley, which was illegal, and the cops were going to raid the gambling joint. So he saw them coming. He pounded on the back door of the grill and he's yelling, the cops, the cops, the cops. They shoved him aside, broke the doors down with axes. Meantime, he goes to the pay phone and calls the joint, the gambling joint, and warns them that there was a raid. They get everything hit, and all the cops ended up with was a bill for the broken doors. That was pretty cool, pretty quick thinking. So anyway, he was later, you know, before he died a few months ago. And all before that, even before he got really sick, when I would take him to conventions, he'd sleep all the way. So I took him to this little convention in Altoona, and he slept all the way. And then we're sitting at our tables, and he was wearing his sheriff's hat, not the original, but a replica with the cigars and the hat band, and his badge on. And he's behind his table, and I'm at my table next to him. And he's like this. He's like this. The whole time. And people would come up to him and they'd look at him. They'd look at his stuff on the table and they'd look at him. And I started telling him, this is a life-size effigy of the sheriff from Night of the Living Dead. I'm selling it for $50 and I'll sign it. So anyway, there's so many more stories I could tell, but we just thought he had the perfect personality to play the sheriff in Night of the Living Dead. And so there was never any question about it. We're talking, well, who can be the sheriff? George Costanza. Yep, that's for sure. So getting ready to shoot his part, we weren't sure if he memorized his lines, if he knew his lines. You know, we knew he was kind of a natural actor, but could he really do it? So George Romero and I set the camera up, and we're ready to shoot the thing, and Bill Cardill's going to interview him, and I said, I'll go over and talk to him. So I said, you know, George, Cardill's going to ask you a bunch of questions. Like, he's going to interview you about these goals and what's going on here, and you have a basic knowledge about them. You know that they're dead, they're weak. If you hit them with flames, they go up pretty easy. You can set them on fire, you can beat them down, whatever. So if you forget your lines or don't know your lines, just answer the questions like you would in a real interview out of your body of knowledge about these goals. Okay, he did. Well, it turned out he did know most of the lines, but when he got stuck, and Cardill asked him, well, can we defeat these things, Sheriff? He said, oh yeah. He said, they're dead. They're all messed up. That was a total ad lib. That was not a written line, but that's what he came up. And we thought about it in editing, and we thought, well, it's pretty good. You know, it's a funny line, and it's a horror film, but let's leave it in, it's pretty good. So he was pretty proud that he had lived that line, and he would make sure to tell, like doing Q&As or something like this, he would make sure to tell everybody that I didn't write that line, that he had lived it. So I'm wondering, how many of you have seen Night of the Living Dead? Almost everybody. How many really want to see it again? Whoa, I know I don't. No, I didn't even know I was going to do this till I read the program book. So I live about an hour away, and I was figuring on driving home, but I was figuring on doing that a lot earlier. So, but I'm still going to do that. So I'm not going to stick around and watch the movie with you. But but does anybody have a particular question that they want to ask? Yes, sir.
I've heard it a few times, but I don't know if everybody else did about what actually happened in Washington, D.C. Like, it was all guerrilla.
Oh, yeah, we did. Actually, at the time, I thought that we had permission to shoot there because Russ didn't get permission. Russ was kind of handling that. As far as the logistics, he and Carl Hardman were the producers. So I was the one in one of our meetings, we were trying to think of a way to show that this wasn't just happening in this one little farmhouse, that it was actually happening all across at least the eastern United States. And I said, well, Washington, D.C. is only a few hours away. Let's just go there and shoot it. Well, we didn't have much money. We actually drove there in one day, shot, and drove back. Most of us, I think Carl and Marilyn stayed at a motel, but the rest of us just drove down there, shot. No permission at all. There we are with the Capitol in the background. Now if you didn't get arrested, you'd get shot, And then I had to try to find a general's uniform. Carl Hardman, that was his car. He had a few antique cars, and it was his car, and he dressed it up with flags. But I couldn't come up. You had to have you had to be officially authorized to get any kind of general's uniform or insignia. And I finally found this uniform that, in color, you would have seen that it was not really the right kind of uniform, but in black and white it kind of passed, But it was I got it from the Pittsburgh Playhouse. They had it in their costume department. And Al McDonald, who was a guy that he worked for an advertising agency that we used to do TV commercials for. But he had some acting experience, and he played the general. But when it came, so he had to change into that uniform. By that time, all kinds of tourists were gathered around us, and we held up a blanket, and that's how he stripped and got into the uniform with this blanket around him. And I don't know, even in those days, why nobody stopped us. We didn't. We ended up getting it done. And Russ, I'm in that scene. I'm the general's driver, and I had just gotten out of the Army, and I still had my uniform, and so I'm wearing my Army uniform. And George Romero is a reporter. So Russ actually shot the scene. So, yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the inception for the whole book, the idea, how did you...
Well, George Romero and I were the two writers in our group at that time. And each of us had an editing room, and we had typewriters in our editing rooms, and we were the ones that would stick around after working hours. And our working hours were long hours for everybody, but Russ was married and he'd gone, and Gary was 8 years younger. I don't know what he would do, but George and I were the ones that would sleep on the studio floor and hash ideas out and all that stuff. So I said that to George that whatever we do ought to start in a cemetery, because people find cemeteries spooky. Even in the Abbott and Costello Meet Dracula, they're in the cemetery and they got the coffin there and the candles moving around or whatever. But it's scary, but it's spooky at the same time. And so I was working on an idea where aliens were going to come to Earth in search of human flesh. And I started writing this thing where this kid's running away from home, and because of an argument with his parents, and he's cutting through the woods, and crack, he steps through what turns out to be a plate of glass in the ground with a rotting corpse under it. And I was thinking that, you know, like in the Middle Ages when they would kill a goose, they would hang it up for several days until it rotted, and that's how they would eat it, you know. And I thought these aliens like to have them rotted. So I was working on that thing, and then George came in with about 30 minutes worth of script that was what turned into Night of the Living Dead. And it was a girl being chased and all that. And I read it and I said, you know, George, this stuff is pretty good. It has the right suspense and twists and turns. But who's chasing this girl? You don't say. And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, when I was reading it, I thought they could be dead people. And he said, that's good. And I said, but you don't say what are they after, you know? They don't bite. I mean, what do they do? He said he didn't know that either. And I said, why don't we use my flesh-eating idea? So he said, that's good. So that's how they became dead people after human flesh. And without those two ideas, you don't have Night of the Living Dead or any of the things that came after. So then George got hung up with a commercial job where the Klan only wanted him to shoot and direct their stuff. The same agency that Al McDonald came from. And I didn't want the project to die because we had started too many films that ran out of money or didn't. And I figured the summer will be gone. If we don't shoot this summer, we may never make a movie. So the way we worked was that if somebody got tied up, somebody else would just carry the ball. So in this case, I rewrote his thing, which was in story form. I put it in screenplay form and rewrote it, and then I wrote the second half of the script myself with some, you know, script sessions that we beat ideas around and so on. And then, so in essence, I wrote most of the script. And a lot of people don't know that. Lately, I've been telling it because I got tired of not getting credit for it. I'll tell you the truth.
John, I'm interested. How did the casting go? How did everyone get cast?
Well, the one thing, we had a lot of, now there's a lot of film production in Pittsburgh as far as feature film. There always was a lot of film production as far as commercial work, political commercials, and because at that time Pittsburgh was the third largest corporate headquarters city in America. And so all those corporations and smaller companies, they all needed film. So there were about 20 film companies all the way from one-man operations on up. But people the actors were mostly avocational. In other words, they had full-time jobs for the most part. They could get out of work or take a couple of vacation days if they were going to be on a TV spot for a couple of days shooting. But who did we know that could play the lead girl, for example, and spend 2 or 3 weeks on camera? We couldn't. For that part, we couldn't think of anybody. You know, we didn't know who could do that and who would even be good enough. So when I wrote the script, I had the girl that she becomes catatonic. You know, Ben locks her out, and we figured if we could get her through the first 20 minutes, and then she becomes catatonic, she wouldn't have to be a very good actress, you know, if we could. But then it ended up we got Judy O'Day, who was a pretty good actress and really did a great job. But so her part was kind of underwritten for those reasons. And when George did the script revision for the 1990 remake, and Patricia Tallman played that part, and he made her a woman of the 90s, and she becomes much more proactive and, you know, fights back and all that stuff. Yes.
I wanted to ask, what are your memories of Dwayne Jones?
Well, Dwayne and I were good friends. Dwayne was very intellectual, between takes he'd be reading. He taught at Columbia University, but he was from Pittsburgh, Duquesne, Pennsylvania, right across the river from Pittsburgh. And he was Betty Ellen Hawhey, strange last name, Hawhey, but she was George's girlfriend at the time, and she worked for a literary agent in New York, and she knew Dwayne, and Dwayne was coming to visit his family over Easter vacation, and she said we should let him read for that part. And so he did, and we thought he was the best actor in the casting. But his sister was a Harvard Law School graduate, and at the time that we had the 25th anniversary convention, Zombie Jamboree 93, right at the Expo Mart in Pittsburgh, which is where the Monroeville Convention Center is now. Dwayne's sister was city solicitor of Atlanta, and she was city solicitor during the Olympics when those bombs went off there. And so at that time, I talked to his mother and his sister, and that's the last contact I've had with him. And Dwayne died at age 50, heart trouble, and so he died young. But when he would come into Pittsburgh, he'd call me up, and we'd go to parties and different things. One time, he and my wife and I went to a party, and we got pretty loaded. And I drove him back home, and he lived up on this windy brick hill. And then at the top of the hill, there was, he said, "No, Jack," he said, everybody thinks they can just back out of here instead of going the long way around, because he said, there's that low brick wall over there, and it looks like you ought to be able to turn around and not hit that wall, but everybody hits that wall, so don't do it that way. Well, I looked at it and I thought, I could turn around, how hard can it be? Crash. And he's standing on his porch watching me. "Oh, Jack, you would have to try to be intrepid." That's the way he talked. How about right here?
I have a question. You've inspired so many writers to continue on with you and George, which I've started, and it was very ominous how there was no reason behind them being zombies and whatnot. How do you feel about the direction it's gone now in what's current with what Robert Kirkman and them are doing and other people?
I don't, if you can make it work, more power to you. I don't care. I'm not a purist, fast zombies, slow zombies, whatever kind of zombies, just make it work. Down and Abandoned made it work, and the Return of the Living Dead version that he directed. So that's pretty much how I feel with it, about it. And, there's been a lot of good films, and then there are a lot of bad ones. So but there would be a reason behind such a disease, just like there's a reason behind AIDS. But the whole movie takes place in about 18 hours, and the authorities wouldn't find out that quick. So I didn't want there to be an explanation. Carl Hardman said, "Well, every horror film has an explanation, so we ought to have one." And he suggested this Venus probe thing, and I said, "Well, okay, I'll write it into the script, but it'll just be speculation on them. They just wouldn't know the answer." And of course, if you don't reveal the answer, it's more mysterious and more scary, just like AIDS was, still is. A lot of questions. Christoph.
Yeah.
By the way, this guy's a great singer, man. He gave me his CD, and it's really good, his songs that he writes, and he's got a terrific voice, too.
Thank you. I was just wondering what inspired the additions and changes for the 30th anniversary edition?
Well, in the first place, Russ Steiner and I are the trustees of the corporation that made the film, and we're obligated to make as much money as we can for these poor shareholders that have struggled and bled and shed tears and everything else and got ripped off for years and years.
Yeah.
So Arrow Films was going to make their own version with new scenes. And
Oh,
I got
wow.
wind of it, and I said, "Well, the hell with that," And I had done some work with Joe Wolf, who was a producer of Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and so on. And I told him I wanted to do this, and he talked to Anchor Bay, and Anchor Bay put up $200,000 for me to write and direct. Actually, I called George first, Romero, and I said,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if you want to do this, but I'm just asking you to don't block it, because we have to make this money and we have to stop Arrow from doing it unauthorized. And so George said, well, we'll both write it. We'll do it like we did the first time. We'll both work on the writing and I'll direct it. Fine with me. But then George got tied up, so I ended up writing the scenes and directing them. And the head buyer at Anchor Bay said, you know, you've done something very few filmmakers have done. He said, George Lucas did it with Star Wars, and now you've done it with Night of the Living Dead. He was a big fan of the movie, and he knew it by heart. And he said these scenes are seamless. So he actually loved it in the beginning. But the other thing is, people don't realize, most of the money at that time went to, we didn't mess with the original, we just remastered it with Dolby Sound. And most of the money went toward that. So to me, it was just fun to mess around with the new scenes and do some things that we might have done, because we never explained where they came from. At least in the 30th anniversary edition, you see that a lot of these ghouls that were out in the middle of the countryside came from Beekman's Diner. I also did a prologue and an epilogue, which is the surest way not to mess with the body of the film.
Right.
But there are some people that, to me, it's ironic, because they think they're sticking up for George Romero when they trash me.
Yeah.
So I got, one guy sent me a human turd in an envelope.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow.
Does the original camera negative exist?
Oh yeah, that's what the music. When WRS Lab closed, I had to go out in the truck and get all this stuff and store it safely at my house. And then we got that negative and took it to the Museum of Modern Art, which they've now done a 4K restoration of the film, just like it's the first movie that got a unanimous vote of their board to be accepted into the Museum of Modern Art and do a restoration. So we just signed a deal with Criterion. They're going to bring the Blu-ray and the 4K out, and it's going to premiere in New York City October 13th. Friday the 13th, that's why they picked that date. So they want us to come there, so the plans aren't totally, we just signed the deal last week, so.
Well, that's great news. Just broke some news.
Well, thank you. So, and they're gonna run it in theaters around the country, but I don't know, we don't have the schedule yet.
Okay, some more questions? How about right over here?
Just wanted to ask, I think I read somewhere there might have been alternate endings that were talked about.
No, well, the ending that I wrote in the original script, the brother's head was smashed against the tombstone, and you kill him by destroying the brain, so the brother was dead, as far as, And the ending that I wrote was that Barbara and Ben both make it to the basement, and then he gets shot when he comes upstairs, and the sheriff and the deputy come into the house and work their way down to the basement. And they're about to shoot her when a tear rolls down her face, and that tells them she's human. And the last scene is she's huddled in that raincoat, that trench coat, and she's still catatonic, and the sheriff's trying to give her some coffee or whatever, and in the background you see Ben's body being carried out to the fire. It's still a pretty good ending, but somebody, and it wasn't me, suggested that, I don't remember who first suggested that we bring the brother back and have him drag her out of the house, and we debated that pretty heavily because we didn't want to blow it for the audience. Like, would they accept that he could still be animated? And then we decided, well, the brain wouldn't necessarily be totally destroyed, when it smashed against the tombstone, and we decided people would buy it. Well, luckily, we shot part of the cemetery scene was the first stuff we shot in June of that year. And then we had to come back to shoot the beginning of the cemetery scene. By that time, it was October. So Russ came up with this idea of the driving gloves because he lost his glasses. Because you see Johnny in the beginning of the film, you're not going to see him again till 90 minutes later, and we wanted to make sure people knew, yes, this is Johnny. So he did it with the driving gloves. So when you first see that driving glove on the door jamb, you know it's him, even though his glasses are gone, his hair's messed up, and he's got gold makeup on. So, it's a pretty powerful moment in the film.
Okay, I know Lance here wanted to ask a question.
At the very end, I'm a big fan of the movie, but at the very end, where he gets shot and it goes, it's kind of cool and depressing.
Good. Well, I came in one day to the studio and I was still working on the writing, and I said, Pennsylvania's a big deer hunting state, and every year 300,000 or 400,000 deer are slaughtered and 10 or 12 drunk hunters. And wouldn't it be ironic if our, a person looks a lot more like, looks like a zombie. So, wouldn't it be ironic if our lead guy was killed? And so we did it. It was also my idea we were running out of film and running out of time and everything else. And I was the one that suggested doing the closing of the film with still photographs, made grainy.
I thought that was really effective.
Well, thanks. There was a film called Failsafe a few years earlier, and it was by accident the U.S. bombs nukes a Russian city, and to avoid an all-out nuclear war, we let them nuke New York. And the way that film ends is you see all these people looking up to the sky and hearing the sound, and it's a montage of one face after another, and they don't have long to live. And so that made me think of doing this thing with stills almost in a similar way. And so Carl Hardin, he was shooting stills like crazy all through the thing, and they have a dark room there at his studio, and they processed 1,000 stills, and then they experimented with printing them through cheesecloth of various thicknesses till we picked the ones that looked the best, that looked right, and then the animators, a company called the Animators, Rick Cavazone, who was walking around here today, but he worked at the Animators, and we got them to do this montage and put it together, on their animation stand.
The other question you answered before, there's a lot of people that wanted to know if that an ad-lib line that George said.
Yeah, that was an ad-lib, for sure.
California wanted to know that. Well, I think it is. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Okay, it's getting late. Let's just do 2 more questions. Night of the Living Dead shirt there.
Since it's almost going to be the 50 years of Night of the Living Dead, what do you think the legacy and what do you think about that and just how it's endured after all these years?
They asked me that whenever we were doing the remake, and that year Night of the Living Dead was inducted into the Horror Hall of Fame, and they were shooting. I didn't even know what a big deal it was going to be, but they came down to interview me on location while we were shooting the remake, and they asked me that question. And I said, well, when Benny Goodman was asked why his music endures for so long, he said, well, it was pretty good music. And I said, well, I could say the same thing about Night of the Living Dead. It's a good horror film. It scares people. That's what horror films are supposed to do. So it's a pretty damn well crafted movie, and the thing is, we we all had this tremendous zeal to make movies then, and we were on the same page. And the other thing is, we were really a tight-knit production unit by then. We had done hundreds of TV commercials and industrial films, and we had our walls covered with awards for our work in international competitions. So we were, nobody had to be told what to do. We knew, every TV spot, every industrial, every kind of film has to be cast, it has to be scored, it needs props and locations and costumes and all that. And the lowliest TV spot calls for all those things. And so a feature film is no different in a certain sense. And we were highly skilled people by that time.
Maybe not a lot of financial resource, but a lot of talent and experience.
Yeah,
to make
right.
it happen.
And we were solidly, once we started rolling, we were solidly behind George as the director too. And he almost gave the directorship to Hardman, and I stopped him from doing it. They were like facing each other across the table at a production meeting, and George was saying, "Why don't you do it, Carl?" And Carl was saying, "Well, why don't you do it?" And they were both hesitating. I said, "Well, if you can't make up your minds, I'll do it." And when we left the meeting, I said to George, "I don't want to direct it. I'm not ready to direct it yet." And I said, the only reason I said that was to stop you from giving the directorship to Carl, because you're our guy, and if you don't direct it, our people are going to lose support for the damn thing. It might fall apart. And Carl really wasn't ready to direct it either. He really wasn't into movies. He was into radio and voices and that kind of production, but not movies.
Okay, we've got time for about one more here. Any other questions? I have one. Okay, I'm going to go with mine here, John. We've talked about Night of the Living Dead, but growing up, what inspired you? What films inspired you?
Well, I went to see every film that came into town, and I grew up in this town, Clarendon, Pennsylvania. It was a booming town in those days with 3 movie theaters, and the pictures changed twice a week, and I would go to almost every movie. And so, but as a kid, to me, movies were made in Hollywood. I didn't think so much about wanting to make movies. I wanted to be a writer, and we did mess around with 8mm films a little bit, but they went nowhere, and they were totally unskilled. And then George Romero came to Pittsburgh to go to Carnegie Mellon. Yeah, that's a funny story. Should I tell that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Rudy Ritchie, who was a close friend of mine, we're all 18 years old at this time, and I was at West Virginia University, and Rudy was at Carnegie Mellon, which was Carnegie Tech then. And he was a fine arts major, and so was George Romero. George came to Pittsburgh from New York. And Rudy called me up and said, "I met this great guy, George Romero, because he's right behind me in line and signing up for freshman classes, and we're in the same fine arts class, and when we're all supposed to be drawing the nude model, he's drawing scenes from Ben-Hur." So I said, "Well, this sounds great." So when I would come home for Christmas vacation, Rudy honked a horn on his car, and George came down the street from his apartment, and he was wearing a big sombrero, 2 bandoleros full of ammunition, 2 pistolas, and a drooping black mustache. And he gets in the car. And the reason he was doing that is he would often dress up according to whatever his favorite movie was, and at that time it was Viva Zapata with Marlon Brando. So there he was, dressed like Viva Zapata, And we went to a Dairy Queen to get ice cream, and the girl slammed the window shut and wouldn't wait on us. I thought, well, this is, like I said, I always gravitated toward the zany and unusual people. So we became friends right away, and then met Russ. About a few weeks later, Russ was in a play at the Playhouse, and we all went there, and I met him. But when the girl slammed the window shut, we're laughing like hell, and Rudy said, "Well, you should have seen George last week. He was covered in tinfoil from head to foot." So I forget what film that was, but like there was an alien creature that was kind of metallic. You guys all know.
Maybe Phantom from Space, I'm guessing? Maybe something like
What,
that.
I forget what I used to know which one it was, but in any event.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much for being here. We
Well,
really-
thank you. I appreciate it. I think all of you are being here because you all want to hear it.
John Russo, make sure you stop by and see him tomorrow at this table. And we really love having John here year after year. John Russo, sponsor.